I'm 46 years old, and until recently, I truly believed my life was stable. Not exciting, not romantic, but solid in the way people say matters most once you've been married long enough. I had a wife, 2 kids, a house in a quiet neighborhood, and a job that paid the bills. Nothing flashy, nothing dramatic, just life. I used to think that if nothing was falling apart, then everything must be fine. My wife, Anna, and I had been married for 22 years. We met when we were young and stupid enough to believe love alone could carry us forever. Back then, we couldn't get enough of each other. Long talks, spontaneous trips, dreams that felt enormous and reachable at the same time. Over the years, those dreams shrank into routines. We built a life that ran like a machine. Wake up, work, kids, dinner, TV, sleep. Repeat. We functioned well together, rarely fought, rarely talked about anything deep either. We became experts at coexistence. I told myself that was marriage. Anna was responsible, organized, and dependable. She remembered birthdays, paid bills on time, and kept the household running smoothly. I worked long hours as a project manager, often coming home tired but proud that I was providing. I believed that was my role. Somewhere along the way, we stopped seeing each other. It didn't happen overnight. There was no single argument, no explosive moment, just small shifts that were easy to dismiss. She stopped asking how my day was, and I stopped noticing. She no longer leaned against me on the couch, instead sitting at the far end with her legs tucked under her. When I tried to start conversations about us, she'd nod, agree, and say we'd talk later. Later never came. I blamed stress, work, parenthood, age. Everyone says marriage gets boring. Everyone says passion fades. I accepted that explanation without question because it was easier than facing the possibility that something was actually wrong. But there were signs. Anna became protective of her phone. Not obsessively, but enough that I noticed. She'd turn the screen away when texting. If I walked into the room, she'd lock it without thinking. When I asked who she was talking to, she'd say, "Just a friend," in a neutral tone that discouraged follow-up questions. She also started going out more. "Just need some air," she'd say. "I've been feeling restless." Sometimes she'd take long walks late in the evening. Other times she'd drive somewhere without explaining where. I never pressed her. I didn't want to be the jealous husband. I trusted her, or at least I thought I did. The truth is, I trusted the version of her I believed still existed. The night that planted the first real doubt in my mind was painfully ordinary. I was taking out the trash after dinner when I noticed Anna sitting in her car in the driveway. The engine was off, the interior light was on. She was on the phone. She was laughing. Not politely, not out of habit, but genuinely. Head tilted back slightly, shoulders relaxed, eyes bright. It hit me harder than I expected because I realized I hadn't heard that laugh in years. When she noticed me standing there, she froze. The laughter vanished instantly. She ended the call and rolled down the window. "Oh, hey," she said, forcing a smile. "Everything okay?" I asked. "Yeah," she replied too quickly. "Just talking to someone from work." I nodded, said nothing, went back inside. But something had shifted. That night, lying in bed beside her, I stared at the ceiling while she scrolled through her phone, facing away from me. I felt a strange tightness in my chest, a mix of confusion and fear I couldn't quite name. I wasn't angry. I was unsettled. For the first time in a long while, I felt lonely while sharing a bed with my wife. Over the following weeks, the distance became harder to ignore. Anna was physically present, but emotionally elsewhere. Conversations felt shallow. Her mind seemed occupied by something she wasn't sharing. I tried to reconnect in small ways. I suggested a weekend away. She said she was too tired. I offered to cook dinner and sit together without phones. She agreed, but spent the evening distracted. I asked if everything was okay between us. She smiled and said, "Of course, don't overthink." So I stopped asking. But doubt doesn't disappear just because you ignore it. It waits. It grows quietly, feeding on every unanswered question. One evening, while helping our son with homework, Anna asked me to grab her laptop from the bedroom. It was already open on the desk when I picked it up. I didn't intend to look at anything. I wasn't searching for proof. Then, a notification popped up in the corner of the screen. "I miss you already." 3 simple words. My stomach dropped. I stood there longer than I should have, staring at the screen, hoping my brain was misinterpreting what I saw, hoping there was some innocent explanation. But deep down, I already knew. That was the moment everything I believed about my life began to crack, and I didn't yet understand how completely it was about to fall apart. I stood in the bedroom holding Anna's laptop like it was something fragile, something dangerous. "I miss you already," the words kept repeating in my head. 3 simple words that carried more weight than any argument we'd ever had. I didn't move. I didn't click anything. I just stared, hoping the screen would go dark and take the moment with it. But it didn't. I closed the laptop slowly and brought it to her without saying a word. She thanked me distractedly, kissed our son on the head, and went back to the kitchen as if nothing had happened. I spent the rest of the evening pretending to be normal. That might have been the hardest part, laughing at the right moments, nodding during conversations, sitting at the same table while my mind screamed questions I was too afraid to ask. That night, sleep didn't come. Anna fell asleep quickly, her back turned to me, phone tucked under her pillow like a secret she couldn't risk losing. I lay there replaying every small moment from the past year, suddenly seeing them through a different lens. The late nights, the sudden interest in her appearance, the emotional distance I'd blamed on stress. It all lined up too neatly. The next morning, I went to work on autopilot. Emails blurred together, meetings passed without me hearing a word. I kept telling myself not to jump to conclusions, that one message didn't prove anything. But doubt is patient. That evening, while Anna was in the shower, I sat alone in the living room, staring at the laptop on the coffee table. I argued with myself for a long time. Privacy matters. Trust matters. So does reality. My hands were shaking when I opened it. I didn't have to search long. The email thread was still open. Dozens of messages, dates stretching back months, then a year, then longer than I wanted to admit. The man's name was Mark. I recognized it immediately. She'd mentioned him casually before, a former colleague, someone who understood her, someone who checked in once in a while. The messages weren't graphic. There were no explicit photos or sexual descriptions. Somehow that made it worse. They talked about feelings, about being misunderstood, about how life had taken them in different directions, but somehow brought them back together. They talked about me, not cruelly, not mockingly, but dismissively. "He's a good man, just not present," she had written. "I feel invisible at home," she told him. "With you, I can breathe." I closed the laptop and sat there, staring at the wall. I didn't cry. I felt hollow. When Anna came out of the bathroom, towel wrapped around her hair, she smiled like nothing had changed. That smile almost broke me. "Can we talk?" I asked. She froze, just for a second, but I saw it. We sat at the kitchen table after the kids went to bed. The house felt tense, like it was holding its breath. "I saw the email," I said quietly. She didn't ask which one. She didn't ask how. She just looked down. "I was gonna tell you," she said after a long pause. That sentence hurt more than I expected. "When?" I asked. "I don't know. Soon." I asked the questions I already knew the answers to. How long it had been going on? Was it physical? Did she love him? She said it had been over a year. She swore it wasn't physical. She said she didn't know what she felt anymore. "I never meant to hurt you," she said through tears. "I was lonely. Lonely." I looked at the woman I had built my entire adult life around and realized how little she understood the damage she'd done. "I was right here the whole time," I said. She cried harder, apologized, said she felt trapped, said I worked too much, said we had grown apart. Some of it was true, but none of it excused betrayal. We tried counseling because that's what people do when they don't know how to let go yet. 3 sessions of polite conversations and careful words. The therapist asked questions about communication and unmet needs. Anna spoke openly about feeling unfulfilled. I listened, took responsibility where it was fair. But something had shifted inside me. I wasn't fighting for us anymore. I was listening to understand how we ended. One night, after a particularly quiet session, Anna said it out loud. "I don't think I've been in love with you for a long time." She didn't say it angrily. She said it like a realization she had finally accepted. I nodded, and in that moment, something unexpected happened. The fear faded. I realized that holding on wouldn't bring back what was already gone. We talked for hours that night, about the kids, about logistics, about how to separate without destroying everything. The divorce was calm, almost eerily so. She moved into a small apartment across town. The kids stayed with me most of the time. She said she needed space to figure herself out. I didn't argue. The first night alone in the house, I sat on the edge of the bed and listened to the silence. It felt enormous. I thought I'd feel rage or despair. Instead, I felt something closer to clarity. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't guessing how someone felt about me. I knew. And while it hurt, it was honest. I just didn't yet know that this ending was the beginning of something I never expected. The first weeks after Anna moved out felt unreal. The house didn't look different, but it sounded different. No footsteps in the morning, no familiar noises from the kitchen, no quiet humming while she folded laundry. Even the refrigerator seemed louder, like it was mocking the silence. I kept expecting to hear her voice. I'd catch myself turning my head when I thought I heard the front door open, only to remember she wasn't coming back. That realization hit me over and over again, each time just as sharp as the first. The kids adjusted faster than I did. They asked questions, of course, why Mom wasn't home, why things were changing. I gave them honest but gentle answers. Sometimes adults grow apart. It's not your fault. We both love you. I made sure of that. But once they were asleep, once the house went quiet again, everything I'd been holding back came rushing in. I replayed our marriage in my head constantly. Every argument, every missed moment, every time I chose work over connection. I wondered if I could have saved us, if I'd noticed sooner, tried harder, been different. Guilt is strange like that. It convinces you that someone else's betrayal is somehow your responsibility. I didn't sleep much. When I did, I dreamed about ordinary moments, us cooking together, sitting on the couch, laughing at something stupid. Waking up from those dreams felt crueler than the nights without sleep. Friends told me it would get better. I nodded and pretended to believe them. During the day, I functioned. I worked, I cooked, I drove the kids to school and activities. I smiled when I needed to. I answered emails. I showed up. At night, I unraveled. One evening, after the kids were at their mother's place, I stood in the kitchen staring at the sink full of dishes and felt something inside me break. Not loudly, not dramatically, just quietly. I sat down on the floor and cried for the first time since the divorce. Not because I missed Anna, but because I missed the version of myself who believed in permanence. That was the moment I realized I couldn't do this alone. I found a therapist the following week. At first, I didn't know what to say. I talked about logistics, about schedules, about co-parenting, about how fine I was doing. The therapist listened patiently. Then she asked a simple question. When was the last time you felt chosen? I didn't answer, because I didn't know. That question stayed with me long after the session ended. Therapy wasn't magical. It didn't fix anything overnight,
but it gave me a place where I didn't have to be strong, a place where I could admit I was angry, hurt, confused, and still worthy. Slowly, I started changing small things. I stopped eating whatever was easiest and started cooking real meals again, not because I had to, but because it felt grounding. I went back to the gym, not to punish my body, but to remind myself it was still mine. I reconnected with friends I'd drifted away from over the years, men who had their own scars, their own stories of loss and rebuilding. We talked honestly in ways we never had before. I learned that a lot of us were lonely, even when we were married. One Saturday morning, months after the divorce, I decided to take a walk through the park near my house. No headphones, no phone, just me and my thoughts. That's when I realized something surprising. I wasn't thinking about Anna anymore. Not constantly, not obsessively. I thought about the future instead, about what kind of life I wanted now that I wasn't trying to fit myself into a version that no longer existed. I wanted peace. Not excitement, not validation, just peace. A few weeks later, on a rainy afternoon, I stopped by a small bookstore cafe I'd passed 100 times but never entered. It smelled of coffee and old paper. I ordered a drink and sat near the window with a book I didn't plan on reading. That's when I noticed her. She was sitting a few tables away, reading the same author I was holding. I made a comment without thinking. "Good choice," I said, lifting the book slightly. She looked up and smiled. Not politely, genuinely. "Yeah," she said, "this one hits differently after 40. We laughed. Her name was Claire. She was 43, divorced, 2 kids. We didn't share dramatic stories right away. We talked about books, about how weird it felt to start over at this age, about how quiet life gets once the noise fades. There was no flirting, no tension, just comfort. We ran into each other again the following week, then again. Each conversation felt easy, honest, unforced. I noticed how she listened, not waiting to speak, not trying to fix anything, just listening. That alone felt rare. Still, I was cautious. I wasn't looking for someone to replace what I'd lost. I wasn't ready for that. I told her as much. She didn't push, didn't rush. "I'm not in a hurry," she said. "I just enjoy the conversation." That felt safe. For the first time since the divorce, I felt something new stirring inside me. Not hope exactly, possibility. I didn't know where it would lead. I didn't even know if I wanted it to lead anywhere. But I knew one thing for sure. I was no longer just surviving. I was slowly, quietly, learning how to live again.
I didn't expect Claire to become important to me. At first, she was just someone I talked to over coffee, someone who existed outside the chaos of my divorce, someone who didn't know me as a husband who failed or a man who was left, but simply as a person. That mattered more than I realized. We started meeting once a week, then twice, walks in the park, long conversations that stretched into evenings without either of us noticing the time. We talked about our kids, our mistakes, the strange emptiness that follows a life collapse. She never tried to rush me, and that was exactly what scared me. After months of emotional whiplash, I had learned to associate closeness with loss. Every time I felt myself relax around her, a quiet voice in my head whispered that it wouldn't last, that it couldn't. One evening, while sitting in my living room, Claire noticed a framed family photo still hanging on the wall. Me, Anna, and the kids at the beach years ago. "You don't have to take that down for me," she said gently. "I know, it's not for you, it's for them." She nodded, understanding immediately. That's when I realized how rare it was to feel understood without having to explain yourself. We eventually crossed the line from friendship into something more, not with a dramatic confession, but with a quiet moment, her hand brushing mine, neither of us pulling away. The kiss that followed wasn't electric, it was calm, and for the first time, calm didn't feel like settling. It felt like safety. Still, I kept part of myself guarded. I didn't introduce her to my kids. I didn't label what we were. I told myself I was being careful. The truth was, I was afraid. Then Anna called. It was late evening. The kids were with her for the weekend. I almost didn't answer. "I need to talk to you," she said. Her voice sounded different, smaller. We met at a neutral place, a quiet diner we used to go to years ago. Sitting across from her felt surreal, like watching an old version of my life through glass. She didn't waste time. "I made a mistake," she said, "with everything." She told me that things with Mark hadn't worked out, that the fantasy collapsed under reality, that she missed our family, our stability, me. "I thought I needed something else," she said, tears forming, "but I didn't realize what I was losing." I listened quietly. Months ago, this conversation would have shattered me. I would have begged, questioned myself, searched for hope in every word. Now I felt distant, not cold, just clear. "I'm sorry you're hurting, honestly, but I'm not the same person you left." She asked if there was any chance we could try again. That question lingered in the air longer than it deserved. I thought about the nights I cried alone, the therapy sessions, the slow rebuilding of my self-worth, the peace I had found. And I thought about Claire. "I don't want to go backwards," I said quietly, "even if it feels familiar." Anna cried. I didn't stop her. When I got home, I sat in the dark for a long time, processing everything. Ending that chapter completely felt heavier than I expected, but also necessary. The next day, I told Claire everything. I expected hesitation, questions, doubt. Instead, she listened. "I don't want to be your rebound, and I don't want to compete with your past," she said calmly. "You're not, and for the first time, I meant it." That conversation changed something between us. I stopped holding back. I introduced her to my kids a few weeks later, slowly, carefully. She didn't try to be anything other than herself. They liked her. That mattered. For the first time in years, my life felt aligned. Not perfect, not dramatic, but honest. And I realized something that surprised me. Letting go of the past wasn't about rejecting it. It was about choosing myself. A year ago, I thought my life had ended. Not in a dramatic way. No explosions, no screaming matches. Just a quiet realization that the future I had planned no longer existed. Back then, I believed starting over at 46 meant settling for less. I was wrong. Life didn't rebuild itself all at once. It came back slowly in small moments I almost missed. Mornings stopped feeling heavy. I started waking up without that familiar knot in my chest. The house didn't feel empty anymore. It felt peaceful. Silence no longer sounded like loss. It sounded like space. Claire became part of my life naturally. She didn't move in right away. We didn't rush milestones. We let things unfold the way they were meant to, without pressure, without pretending. We spent evenings cooking together, sometimes talking, sometimes just enjoying the quiet. I noticed how different this felt. There was no tension, no fear of saying the wrong thing, no emotional guessing games. If something bothered one of us, we talked about it, calmly, honestly. That alone felt revolutionary. My kids noticed the change before I did. "You smile more now," my daughter said one evening as we were cleaning up after dinner. She wasn't accusing, she wasn't sad, she was observant. Claire never tried to replace their mother. She respected boundaries effortlessly. She showed up consistently, listened when they spoke, remembered the little things that mattered to them. Trust grew. Not forced, not demanded, earned. Anna and I settled into a healthier rhythm as co-parents. We spoke less about the past and more about the present. There were no more late-night emotional calls, no mixed signals, just clear, respectful communication. I realized something important during that time. Forgiveness isn't about excusing what happened. It's about refusing to carry it with you. Letting go of resentment freed more energy than I expected. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't waiting for apologies that would never fully heal the wound. I had moved on. One evening, Claire and I sat on the back porch watching the sky turn orange as the sun dipped below the trees. There was a calmness in the air that felt earned. "I don't need fireworks," she said quietly. "I just want consistency." I took her hand. "So do I." That was the moment I knew. Not with excitement, not with fear, with certainty. We moved in together the following spring, not because we needed to, but because it made sense. The house filled with life again, laughter, music, shared routines that felt intentional rather than obligatory. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. On my 48th birthday, after dinner with the kids, Claire handed me a small box. Inside was a simple watch. Engraved on the back were the words, "Chosen, every day." I didn't say anything for a long time, because for the first time in my life, I truly felt it. I wasn't someone's safety net. I wasn't someone's second choice. I wasn't someone's convenience. I was chosen, and I chose back. Looking back now, I don't regret my marriage. It gave me my children. It taught me patience, endurance, and the cost of ignoring your own needs. But I don't miss it, because the life I have now, the quiet mornings, the honest conversations, the mutual respect, is worth everything I lost to get here. Sometimes endings aren't failures. Sometimes they're invitations. And I finally accepted mine.